Hey everyone, I'm Mono Scaling. I'm here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now get comfortable and relax. My name is Claire Matheson, and I need to write this down while I still remember it clearly. My husband David says I should just forget about it, that we're home now and it's over. But I can't. Something happened at Lake Powell last month, and I need to get it out of my head. We'd been planning the trip for over a year. David bought a used RV in February, a 2015 Winnebago, 32 feet, the kind with the slide-out that gave us actual living space. We weren't the RV type, really. We were both teachers, me middle school English and David high school chemistry, and we'd always done hotels or Airbnbs for vacations. But David's brother Rick had been talking up the RV lifestyle for years, and after the pandemic, the idea of having our own space while traveling sounded good. We left Pittsburgh on a Saturday in late September. The plan was to drive out to Lake Powell in Utah, spend 10 days there, then loop back through Colorado. Just the two of us. Our daughter Emily was starting her sophomore year at Penn State, so we finally had the house to ourselves. The drive took 4 days. David wanted to take his time, get used to handling the RV. We stayed at campgrounds along the way, nothing fancy. By the time we crossed into Utah, I was actually enjoying it. There was something relaxing about pulling into a site, hooking up the utilities, and having everything we needed right there. Lake Powell was exactly what we'd hoped for. We'd booked a spot at Lone Rock Beach, where you can camp right on the sand with the water in front of you and that massive red butte rising up behind. The woman at the entrance station told us we could pick any spot that wasn't occupied. We drove along the beach until we found a good one, maybe 100 yards from the nearest RV, which happened to be Rick's. I should explain about Rick. He'd driven out from Phoenix to meet us, just for the first few days of our trip. He and David had always been close, and Rick had promised to show us the ropes. His RV was bigger than ours, one of those Class A models that looks like a bus. He'd been living in it full-time for 3 years, ever since his divorce. We got set up around 4 in the afternoon. Rick came over with 3 beers and helped David with the leveling jacks and the slide-out. I remember standing there watching the sun hit the water, thinking this was going to be perfect. That first night was fine. We grilled burgers, sat outside talking until about 11. Rick told us about some hikes we should do, places we had to see. He'd been coming to Lake Powell for years and knew it well. Around midnight, we said goodnight and David and I went inside. The RV had a bedroom in the back, a real queen-size bed, which was one of the reasons David had picked this model. We got ready for bed, turned off the lights, and I fell asleep almost immediately. I woke up around 7. David was still asleep. I got up to make coffee and noticed the bedroom door was closed. That was strange because we never closed it. There was no reason to. The RV was just us, but I figured maybe I'd pulled it shut in my sleep, or David had. I opened it and went to the kitchen, made coffee, started some eggs. David got up around 7:30. We ate breakfast, talked about what we wanted to do that day. Rick came over around 9 and the 3 of us drove into Page to get some supplies. The second night was similar. We cooked out again, this time steaks. Rick left around 10 because he had an early morning planned. He was going to drive up to Antelope Canyon for sunrise photos. David and I stayed up a little later, finished a bottle of wine, went to bed around 11:30. The next morning, I woke up and the bedroom door was closed again. I asked David about it while we were having coffee. He said he hadn't closed it. I told him it had been closed yesterday too. He shrugged and said, maybe it swung shut on its own because of how we were parked. The RV wasn't perfectly level despite the jacks. That made sense. I let it go. Rick left that day. He had to get back to Phoenix for work. He did some kind of remote IT consulting, but he had an in-person meeting he couldn't miss. We drove him to the marina where he was going to leave his RV for a few days. Then he'd come back and pick it up on his way home. We said goodbye, made plans to meet up again before we left Utah, and David and I went back to our spot on the beach. That night, it was just us. We ate sandwiches for dinner, played cards, went to bed around 10. Simple. Quiet. I woke up at 6:30. The bedroom door was closed. I lay there for a minute, looking at it. The door had one of those standard RV latches, a little metal hook that caught on a loop. It definitely shouldn't close on its own. I got up and checked it. The latch wasn't engaged, but the door was pulled completely shut. I opened it and went into the main area. Everything looked normal. The front door was locked. The windows were shut. I made coffee and waited for David to wake up. When he came out, I told him again about the door. He walked back to the bedroom and examined it, swinging it back and forth. He said it had a slight tendency to swing closed, probably because of a weak hinge spring. He'd fix it later, but I'd been watching him test it and the door didn't swing closed. It hung open. We spent the day hiking up to Lone Rock. It's only about a mile walk from the campground, and the view from the top is supposed to be incredible. The trail was steeper than we expected, and by the time we got to the top, we were both exhausted. The view was worth it, though. You could see the whole lake, all those red canyons and blue water. We got back to the RV around 4. I took a shower. The RV had a tiny bathroom with a shower that barely fit one person, and then made pasta for dinner. We ate outside again, watching the sun go down over the water. David went to bed before me that night. He'd been tired from the hike. I stayed up reading until about 11, then went to the bedroom. David was asleep. I got into bed next to him and turned off the light. I woke up at 3 in the morning. I don't usually wake up in the middle of the night, but something had disturbed me. I lay there listening. I couldn't hear anything unusual, just the wind outside and David breathing next to me. The bedroom door was closed. I stared at it in the dark. I hadn't closed it when I came to bed. I was sure of that. I got up, my heart beating a little faster than normal, and opened it. The main area of the RV was dark. I turned on the light above the stove. Everything looked fine. The front door was locked, the windows were locked. I checked the bathroom, nothing. I even opened the storage compartment under the bed where we kept our suitcases. Everything was normal. I went back to bed. David didn't wake up. I lay there for a long time before I finally fell asleep. In the morning, David asked me why I'd gotten up in the middle of the night. I told him about the door closing again. He looked concerned, but not about the door, about me. He asked if I was feeling okay, if I was stressed about something. I told him I was fine, and he said maybe I should try taking some melatonin to sleep better. We didn't talk about it again that day. That afternoon, another RV pulled into a spot about 50 yards down the beach from us. A couple got out, maybe in their 60s, and started setting up. David walked over to say hello. I watched from our RV window. He talked to them for a few minutes, then came back. "Nice people," he said. "Bill and Sharon from Oregon. They've been coming here for years." I went over later to introduce myself. Sharon was friendly, talkative. She asked how long we were staying, if this was our first time. I mentioned that we'd been having a minor issue with one of our doors closing on its own. Asked if that was normal for RVs. She looked at me strangely. "You mean like it's swinging shut?" "Yeah, the bedroom door. It keeps closing at night." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she smiled. "Could be the leveling. Sometimes if you're parked on a slope, things shift around at night." But we weren't on a slope. The beach was flat. That night, I couldn't sleep. David was out by 9:30, exhausted from another long hike we'd done. I lay there next to him, staring at the bedroom door. I'd left it wide open, propped it with a shoe just to test it. At 11:30, I was still awake. The door was still open. At 1 in the morning, I finally drifted off. I woke up at 5. The shoe was on the floor. The door was closed. I didn't wake David. I got up, went to the kitchen, made coffee. My hands were shaking a little. I sat at the small dining table and tried to think rationally. Maybe there was some explanation I wasn't seeing. Maybe the RV was settling, or there was some kind of air pressure thing, or... I heard something outside. It was faint, like footsteps in sand. I froze, listening. The sound stopped. I waited. Nothing. I got up and looked out the window above the sink. It was still dark, just the faintest hint of dawn on the horizon. I couldn't see anything. Our RV was facing the water, and behind us was nothing but empty beach and that red butte in the distance. I went back to the table and sat there until David woke up at 6:30. I told him what had happened, all of it. He listened, then asked if I wanted to leave. I said no. He said maybe we should move to a different spot, see if that helped. I agreed. We spent the morning packing up and relocating to a different area, closer to the entrance road and nearer to Bill and Sharon's RV. There were more people around, which made me feel better. We got set up again by noon. That night I made sure the bedroom door was secured. I took a bungee cord from our storage and hooked it from the door handle to a cabinet across from it. The door couldn't close unless someone unhooked the bungee. We went to bed around 10. I fell asleep easier than I had in days, reassured by the bungee cord. I woke up at 2 in the morning. The bungee cord was unhooked. The door was closed. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. David was still asleep beside me. I stared at the door. The bungee cord was lying on the floor, neatly coiled. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just sat there in the dark, looking at that closed door. Finally, I got up and opened it. The RV was empty. Everything was locked. I checked the bungee cord. It wasn't broken or cut. Someone had simply unhooked it, but no one had been inside. I knew that. The front door locked from the inside with a deadbolt. The windows were all secured. There was no way someone could have gotten in. I went back to the bedroom and shook David awake. He was groggy, confused. I showed him the bungee cord, told him what had happened. He got up and checked the whole RV himself. He couldn't find anything wrong. "Maybe you unhooked it in your sleep," he said. I didn't. "Claire, you had to have. There's no other explanation." I didn't argue with him. I went back to bed. He fell asleep quickly. I stayed awake until morning. The next day, I walked down to Bill and Sharon's RV. Sharon was outside, reading in a folding chair. I asked if I could talk to her. She put down her book and gestured to another chair. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Has anything else happened?" she finally asked. "Besides the door?" "What do you mean? Have you noticed anything else strange?" I thought about it. "No, just the door." She nodded slowly. "Bill and I have been coming to Lake Powell for 15 years. We've heard stories." "What kind of stories?" "People getting uncomfortable, especially out at Lone Rock. It's very isolated out here. Some folks can't handle that. They start imagining things." "I'm not imagining this." "I'm not saying you are." She paused. "Look, there are places in this desert that are just, I don't know how to explain it. They're not quite right. Some people are more sensitive to it than others." I didn't know what to say to that. "My advice?" she continued. "If it's bothering you that much, maybe cut the trip short. There's no shame in it." I thanked her and went back to our RV. David was inside working on his laptop. I told him I wanted to leave. He looked up at me, surprised. "Leave? We've still got 5 days left." "I know, I think we should go." He closed his laptop. "Because of the door?" "Yes." "Claire, come on, there has to be a rational explanation. You're letting this get to you. Then explain it to me. Explain how a door keeps closing when it can't physically close on its own. Explain how a bungee cord gets unhooked." He couldn't. We argued for an hour. Eventually, he agreed to compromise. We'd stay 3 more days. And if anything else happened, we'd leave early. I wasn't happy about it, but I agreed. That night, I tried a different approach. I took a roll of duct tape and taped the bedroom door to the frame. I used the whole roll. The door couldn't move at all. We went to bed. I took 2 Benadryl to help me sleep. I woke up at 7 in the morning. The tape was gone. Every piece of it. The door was closed. I didn't even wake David. I got dressed, went outside, and sat on the beach. It was a beautiful morning. The sun was just coming up, turning the water orange and pink. I sat there for over an hour trying to make sense of what was happening. David found me around 8:30. He sat down next to me in the sand. "The tape's gone," I said. "I know. I saw. We need to leave." "I know." We started packing up that morning. Bill came over while we were disconnecting the utilities and asked if everything was okay. David told him we'd had a family emergency, needed to get back home. Bill nodded, didn't push it. Sharon waved from their RV but didn't come over. We were almost ready to go when I realized I'd left my phone charger in the bedroom. I went back inside to get it. The bedroom door was open. We'd been leaving it open all morning while we packed. I grabbed the charger and turned to leave. The door swung shut in front of me. I stood there, staring at it. Then I reached out and tried to open it. The latch had engaged. The door was locked from the outside. I started pounding on it and yelling for David. I heard him running. He tried to open the door from his side, but it wouldn't budge. The latch was stuck. He had to get a screwdriver and take the whole latch mechanism apart before he could get the door open. I came out shaking. David held me for a minute, then helped me outside. We finished packing in silence and got on the road within the hour. We didn't talk much on the drive home. David tried a few times to bring it up, to suggest explanations, but I didn't want to hear it. I knew what had happened. Someone, or something, had been closing that door every night. Someone had been outside our RV. We got home to Pittsburgh 6 days later. Everything seemed normal. We unpacked, David returned to work. I started planning for the new semester, but I couldn't stop thinking about those mornings waking up to find the door closed. Last week I was going through the photos on my phone from the trip. Most of them were just landscapes. The lake, the red rocks, sunsets. But there was one photo I didn't remember taking. It was from inside the RV, taken at night. The angle was wrong, like the phone had been lying on the counter facing the bedroom. The timestamp said it was from our last night there, taken at 2:47 a.m. The photo showed the bedroom door. It was open, and standing in the doorway, just barely visible in the darkness, was a figure. I couldn't make out any details, it was too dark, but someone was standing there looking at the camera. I showed it to David. He studied it for a long time, then said it must be him, that he'd probably gotten up to use the bathroom and the phone's camera had gone off accidentally. But I know what David looks like in the dark. I've been married to him for 17 years. That wasn't David. I deleted the photo. David said I should just forget about the whole thing, that we're safe at home and it's over. He's probably right. But I keep thinking about what Sharon said, about places that aren't quite right. I keep thinking about those mornings, waking up with the door closed. And I keep thinking about the fact that someone had to open our bedroom door every night to close it again from the outside. Someone was inside our RV while we were sleeping. Every single night. We haven't talked about taking the RV out again. David wants to sell it, says we can just go back to hotels. I agreed. We listed it online last week, and someone's coming to look at it on Saturday. But there's something I haven't told David, something I only noticed yesterday. I was checking the RV one last time before the showing, making sure everything was clean. I went into the bedroom and looked at the door. The latch that David had taken apart was still in pieces in a drawer somewhere. He'd never fixed it. But that wasn't what caught my attention. On the outside of the bedroom door, right at eye level, there were 4 small indentations in the wood. They were faint, easy to miss, but they were there, evenly spaced, about the width of fingers. They looked like someone had been gripping the door, pressing it closed every night. I ran my own fingers over the marks. They matched. I haven't told David about this. I don't know if I will. I've been thinking about calling the buyer tomorrow and telling them the RV isn't for sale anymore, that we've changed our minds. But I don't know what I'd do with it. I can't sell it to someone else, not knowing what I know. Maybe I'll just leave it parked in our driveway. We can cover it up for winter, let it sit there. Maybe whatever was in it will stay in it. Or maybe it's already out. 3 nights ago, I woke up at 2 in the morning. David was asleep next to me. Our bedroom door, our real bedroom door in our house, was closed. I'd left it open. I always leave it open now. I got up and tried the handle. It wouldn't turn. The door was locked. From the outside. David woke up when he heard me rattling the knob. I told him the door was stuck. He got up and examined it, jiggled the handle. It opened easily for him. He said I must have turned the lock in my sleep, that old houses settle sometimes and doors stick. But our bedroom door doesn't have a lock. It never has. Last night I waited until David fell asleep. Then I lay there watching the door. I was determined to stay awake, to see if it closed. I made it until midnight. My eyes were getting heavy. The last thing I remember seeing before I drifted off was the door, still open. I woke up at dawn. The door was closed. And on the hardwood floor, right in front of it, there was sand. Fine, red sand, like the kind from the beach at Lake Powell. I swept it up before David woke. I put it in a plastic bag and hid it in the garage. I don't know why I kept it. Evidence, maybe. Proof that I'm not crazy. I'm writing this now because I need someone to know what happened. I need there to be a record. If something happens to me, to us, I want people to understand that it started at Lake Powell. It started with a door that wouldn't stay open. David's calling me from downstairs. He wants to go look at paint samples for the kitchen. Normal Saturday things. I'll go down in a minute and we'll drive to Home Depot and pick out colors like nothing's wrong. But tonight, when we go to bed, I'm going to stay awake. I'm going to watch that door. And if it closes, I'm going to see who closes it. I just heard David coming up the stairs. He's calling my name. But he left for work this morning. I watched him pull out of the driveway at 7:30. He's not supposed to be home until 5. The footsteps are getting closer. Our bedroom door just closed. I can hear breathing on the other side. Someone's trying the handle. I should end this now. I should post it while I still can. If you're reading this, if something happens to us, tell them we should have left Lake Powell after the first night. Tell them we should have listened when the door tried to warn us. Tell them some doors close for a reason. The handle's turning now. David's still calling my name, but it doesn't sound like him anymore. The voice is wrong. The pitch is off. The door's opening. I can see fingers curling around the edge. 4 fingers, the same spacing as the marks on the RV door. I'm going to hit post now. I'm going to. This post was recovered from a private blog and submitted to local authorities in Pittsburgh, PA on October 15th. No one named Claire or David Matheson was found at the address listed in the account details. The RV referenced in the post was found abandoned in the driveway of an empty house. The current whereabouts of the blog's author remain unknown. If you have any information, please contact the Pittsburgh Police Department. A follow-up investigation at Lake Powell found no record of anyone matching the Mathesons' description, camping at Lone Rock Beach in September. However, park rangers did note that several RV doors in the storage area near the marina had been found repeatedly closed and latched, despite being left open. Maintenance staff reported finding red sand inside several vehicles that had been locked for months. The investigation is ongoing. Story 2. My name is Emily Hill. I need to write this down while I still remember how to count. Derek wanted to go camping. That's the simple version. The real version is that we'd been fighting for 3 months straight. Not screaming matches, but the worst kind. The silent erosion where you stop saying what you mean and start saying what you think the other person wants to hear. His promotion meant 60-hour weeks. My freelance design work meant I was home alone talking to my laptop. We were roommates who occasionally had sex. "We need this," he said, showing me photos of Fish Lake National Forest on his phone. Just us. No internet. No deadlines. I said yes because I didn't know how to say no anymore. Because I was 29 and starting to wonder if love was supposed to feel like holding your breath underwater. We rented an RV from a place in Salt Lake City. Derek handled all the logistics, he always did. I packed clothes and downloaded podcasts I'd never listened to. The drive took 4 hours. He was excited in that focused way he got about projects, talking about the trails we'd hike and the stars we'd see. I watched Utah scroll past the window and felt nothing. Fish Lake in late September was beautiful in that postcard way that doesn't quite feel real. Aspens turning gold, air so clear it hurt to breathe. The campground was called Lakeshore, tucked between the water and the forest. We got site number 14. I remember that number. I remember all the numbers now. There were maybe a dozen other RVs spread across the campground. A family with 3 kids at site number 9, an older couple at Nor 6, a solo guy in a van at the 18. Everyone kept to themselves in that polite camping way. The occasional wave, nothing more. Derek backed the RV into our spot on the first try. He was good at spatial reasoning, at making things fit. "See?" he said, cutting the engine. "This is perfect." The forest pressed close on 3 sides. Through the RV window I could see aspens and pines climbing the slope behind us, dense enough that the shadows underneath looked solid. We set up like people who'd never done this before, figuring out the water hookup, the electrical, the waste system. Derek read instruction manuals out loud. I mostly just handed him tools. By the time we finished, it was after 6 and getting dark fast. "Want to make a fire?" he asked. "Sure." We had hot dogs and beer. Derek was in a good mood, making jokes about being mountain men. I tried to match his energy, but something about the place felt off. Not scary, just slightly wrong, like a picture frame hung a few degrees crooked. The trees were too quiet. No wind, no birds, just this heavy stillness that made me want to whisper. Around 9, Derek went to bed. I stayed outside for a while, finishing my beer, looking at stars I couldn't name. That's when I first heard it. A voice in the trees, faint, like someone speaking very far away or very quietly. I couldn't make out words, just the rhythm of speech. I stood up, trying to pinpoint direction, but sound did weird things in the forest. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Hello?" I called. The voice stopped. I waited, feeling stupid, then went inside. Derek was already asleep, one arm thrown over his face. I climbed into the narrow RV bed and lay there listening. The voice didn't come back, but I kept thinking I heard it just under the threshold of perception, like trying to remember a song stuck in your head. I didn't sleep well. The next morning was bright and cold. Derek made coffee on the RV stove while I stood outside in a sweatshirt, watching mist rise off the lake. The family at site number 9 was already up, the kids running around while the parents made breakfast. Normal vacation stuff. It made me feel better. "Sleep okay?" Derek asked, handing me a mug. "Yeah," I lied. We decided to hike. There was a trail that supposedly led to some aspens over 5, florin years old, pando they called it, all one organism connected by roots. Derek had read about it online, was excited in his quiet way. The trail started easy, well marked. We walked in silence, which was normal for us lately. I kept looking at the trees, wondering which one had spoken. They all looked the same. Golden leaves shimmering in the breeze that had picked up overnight, beautiful and indifferent. About an hour in, Derek stopped and pulled out his phone. "GPS is acting weird," he said, frowning at the screen. "We're in the forest. Probably no signal." "No, it has signal. But look." He showed me. The blue dot representing us kept jumping around, placing us in different spots every few seconds. Sometimes on the trail, sometimes a mile away, sometimes back at the campground. "Just use the trail markers," I said. He pocketed the phone, but I could tell it bothered him. Derek liked things to work the way they were supposed to. We kept hiking. The trail got narrower, less maintained. My calves started to burn. I was about to suggest turning back when Derek stopped again, head tilted. "Do you hear that?" I listened. At first, nothing. Then I caught it. That same faint voice from last night, but this time I could make out what it was saying. Numbers. Someone was saying numbers in the forest. 47, 46, 45. Derek started toward the sound, pushing through underbrush off the trail. "What are you doing?" I called. "Someone might need help." "Derek, wait." But he was already moving, crashing through branches. I followed because I didn't want to be alone. The voice got louder as we went deeper into the trees, away from the trail. Not clearer, still that distant, whispery quality, but more persistent. 43, 42, 41. Counting down. We pushed through a thick stand of aspens into a small clearing. Nothing. No person. No speaker. Just trees and dead leaves and silence. The voice stopped. "That's fucking weird, Derek said. I pulled out my phone. The GPS showed us in the middle of the lake. I showed him. "Let's go back," I said. We spent 20 minutes trying to find the trail. Everything looked the same. No markers, no obvious path, just endless aspens turning gold overhead and thick undergrowth pulling at our legs. My heart started beating faster. I'm not an outdoorsy person. Getting lost in the woods is something that happens to other people. People who don't check and double-check and plan everything. "It was right here," Derek kept saying, turning in circles. "Maybe we should call for help." He pulled out his phone. No signal now. Mine was the same. I was about to suggest just picking a direction and walking straight when Derek spotted something. An orange ribbon tied to a tree branch. Trail marker. We'd somehow circled around to a different part of the path. Neither of us said much on the walk back to the campground. The voice didn't come back. But I kept looking over my shoulder, feeling watched in a way that made my skin crawl. That afternoon, Derek wanted to fish. I stayed at the RV, ostensibly to work on a design project, but really I just sat there with my laptop closed, staring at the trees. The couple from site number 6 walked past around 3. The woman smiled and waved. I waved back. She looked normal. Happy even. Like she wasn't hearing disembodied voices counting down from nowhere. I tried to tell myself it had been some kind of acoustic trick. Sound bouncing off rock formations or something. But the memory of it made me uneasy in a way I couldn't shake. Derek came back at sunset with no fish and a weird story. "Met this guy down at the lake," he said, opening a beer. "He said he's been camping here for a week. Asked if we'd heard anything strange at night." "Like what?" He wouldn't say exactly. Just kept asking if we'd heard anything, then he said we should leave. "Why?" Wouldn't say that either. He seemed... Derek paused, choosing words. Off. Like he hadn't slept in days. "What did you tell him?" "That we were fine. He just looked at me and said, 'Okay, but count your hours.' Then he walked away." Count your hours. The phrase made something cold slide down my spine. "Did he seem dangerous?" I asked. "No, just weird. Probably been alone in the woods too long." We made pasta on the camp stove. Drank more beer than we should have. As the sun went down, the temperature dropped fast. Derek built a fire and we sat close to it, wrapped in blankets. For a while it almost felt like the trip was working, like we were connecting. Then the voice started again. 39, 38, 37. Derek's head snapped up. "You hear that?" "Yeah." We both stood, looking into the darkness beyond the firelight. The voice was coming from the forest behind our site, the same whispery tone as before. 36, 35, 34. "Should we check it out?" Derek asked. "Absolutely fucking not." He looked at me, surprised. I'd used a tone I rarely used, the one that meant I was serious. "It could be someone in trouble," he said. "Or it could be something trying to get us into the woods at night." "Something?" I couldn't explain the dread I felt. It wasn't rational, but every instinct I had was screaming not to follow that voice. "Please," I said. "Let's just stay here." Derek nodded slowly. We sat back down, but the mood was broken. The voice continued for another 5 minutes. 33, 32, 31, then stopped at 30. We went inside the RV and locked the door. Derek made a joke about me being paranoid. I didn't laugh. I lay awake for hours. Derek snored beside me, but I couldn't shut my mind off. The numbers kept cycling through my head. 47 down to 30. What happened at 0? Around 2 in the morning I heard it again, softer this time, like it was right outside the RV. 29, 28, 27. I didn't wake Derek. I just lay there, listening to the countdown, feeling my pulse in my throat. Day 3. I wanted to leave. Derek wanted to stay. "We paid for a week," he said over coffee. "We can eat the cost." "Why? Because of some weird sounds?" "It doesn't feel right here." Nothing feels right to you lately, Em. The comment stung because it was true. I'd been anxious for months, wound tight, seeing problems everywhere. My therapist said it was burnout. Maybe this was just more of that. Fine, I said. We'll stay. But I could see relief on his face, and that bothered me more than anything. He was enjoying this. The woods, the solitude, the disconnection from normal life. Meanwhile, I felt like something was watching us, counting down to something I didn't understand. We spent the morning at the lake. The water was too cold for swimming, but Derek skipped rocks while I sat on the shore. The family from site number 9 was there too. The kids were building something in the sand. The mother caught my eye and walked over. "Beautiful day," she said. "Yeah. How long are you staying?" "Originally a week, maybe less." She nodded, understanding in her expression. "The forest gets to some people. My husband loves it, but I always feel like—" She trailed off, glancing back at her family. "Never mind." "Like what?" "Like we're somewhere we shouldn't be, like we're guests who've overstayed our welcome." She laughed, self-conscious. "That sounds crazy." "It doesn't," I said. She looked relieved. "Have you heard anything strange at night?" My skin prickled. "Like what?" "I don't know. Voices, maybe. My daughter said she heard someone counting yesterday, but we figured she was just being a kid." I wanted to tell her about the numbers, about the voice in the trees, the GPS glitches, the feeling of being watched. But Derek was walking back toward us, and the moment passed. "Be careful," the woman said quietly, then returned to her family. That afternoon, Derek went into town to get more supplies. I stayed behind trying to work, but I couldn't focus. The RV suddenly felt claustrophobic, metal walls pressing in. I needed air. I walked to site number 18 where the solo guy was camping. His van was there, an older model with curtained windows but no sign of him. I was about to turn back when I noticed something. On the van's side door, someone had scratched numbers into the paint. Not random marks, deliberate digits. A long sequence that started at 47 and counted down. My breath caught. I walked closer, running my fingers over the etched numbers. Fresh, the metal underneath still bright, and at the bottom scratched deeper than the rest. 0. "What are you doing?" I spun around. The solo guy was standing behind me. Maybe 35, gaunt with dark circles under bloodshot eyes. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "I was just—" "You heard them. Not a question. The numbers." Yes." He laughed, a broken sound. "How many days have you been here?" 3. 3 days. "I've been here 9. 9 days of counting. Do you know what happens when it reaches 0? "No. Neither do I, but I'm not staying to find out." He moved to his van, started throwing things inside. "You shouldn't either. There's something wrong with this place. Something in the trees." "Have you seen anything?" "Not seen. Heard. Felt." He paused, looking at the forest. "Yesterday I followed the voice, found a clearing deep in the woods. There was—" He stopped, jaw working. "There was a circle, made of stones, old, really old. And in the center, bones, arranged in patterns, numbers carved into them." "What kind of bones?" He met my eyes. "Human." I stepped back. "Did you call the police?" "No signal out here, and honestly—" He zipped his duffel bag. "I don't think the police would find anything. I think whatever's here, it's not something they can help with." "That's insane." "Is it? You've heard the counting, you feel it too, don't you? The weight of something watching. This forest doesn't want us here, and whatever's doing the counting, when it gets to 0, something happens. Something bad." He got in his van, started the engine. Before driving off, he leaned out the window. "If you're smart, you'll leave today. Don't wait for 0. And whatever you do, don't go into the woods after dark." Then he was gone, dust rising behind his tires. I walked back to our site slowly, mind racing. Part of me wanted to dismiss him as crazy, paranoid from too much isolation. But I'd heard the numbers. I'd felt the wrongness, and those scratches on his van, 47 down to 0, matched what I'd heard. Derek got back around 5. I told him about the encounter. He listened, frowning. Guy was probably on drugs, he said. Derek, he was terrified. Of numbers? Come on, this is getting ridiculous. I want to leave. No. The word was flat, final. I stared at him. What do you mean, no? I mean, we're not leaving because you're having some kind of anxiety spiral over weird sounds in the forest. This is important, Em. Us being here, disconnecting, reconnecting. I'm not going to let your paranoia ruin it. This isn't paranoia, isn't it? Lately, everything scares you. The news, crowds, phone calls, emails. Now it's camping. Maybe the problem isn't the forest. Maybe it's you. The words hit like a slap. I felt tears burning but refused to let them fall. Fuck you, I said quietly. I walked to the lake and sat there until dark, ignoring the cold, ignoring the darkening trees. When I finally went back, Derek was drinking whiskey by the fire. I'm sorry, he said, not looking at me. That was shitty. Yeah. Can we just try to enjoy this, please? I wanted to say no, wanted to demand we leave immediately, but I was tired of fighting, tired of being afraid, tired of myself. Fine. We sat in silence. The fire crackled. Stars emerged overhead, so many I couldn't process them all. Then, right on schedule, the voice started. 26, 25, 24. Derek tensed. It's louder tonight. He was right. The whisper had more weight, more presence. Like whatever was speaking had moved closer. 23. 22. 21. I'm going to find out what that is, Derek said, standing. Don't. Em, someone is fucking with us. Probably those kids from Site 9 trying to scare people. I'm going to... Derek, please, just stay here. But he was already grabbing a flashlight, moving toward the trees. The voice continued, patient and relentless. 20, 19, 18. I watched Derek's flashlight bob into the darkness, swallowed by the forest within seconds. The beam weakened, dimmed, then disappeared entirely. I sat by the fire, alone, listening to the countdown. 17, 16, 15. 5 minutes passed. 10. The voice kept counting. Derek didn't come back. 12, 11, 10. I stood up, heart hammering. Derek? Nothing. 9, 8, 7. I grabbed my own flashlight, started toward where he'd gone. The darkness under the trees was absolute, my beam barely penetrating. Derek, I shouted. 6, 5, 4. Derek! 3, 2, 1. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. The voice stopped. The night stopped. Even the fire seemed to burn without sound. Then I heard footsteps. Someone was walking through the forest toward me. Steady, unhurried steps. I pointed my flashlight toward the sound. Derek emerged from the trees. Hey, he said, smiling. Sorry. Got turned around. Relief flooded through me. Jesus Christ, you scared me. What happened? Nothing, just walked around, couldn't find anything. He looked at the fire. I'm tired, let's go to bed. Something in his tone made me pause. Too flat, too casual. You were gone for almost 20 minutes. Was I? He kept smiling. Time flies. We went inside the RV. Derek got into bed immediately, still wearing his shoes. I watched him from the doorway. Aren't you going to change? I'm fine. He closed his eyes, still smiling, that weird, fixed smile. Within seconds, he was asleep. Or pretending to be. I sat on the small couch watching him in the darkness. Something was wrong. I couldn't articulate what, but every instinct was screaming that the man in the bed wasn't quite Derek anymore. I didn't sleep. Just sat there watching him, looking for what was different. His breathing was wrong. Too steady, too rhythmic, like a metronome. He didn't move at all, not even the small shifts people make in sleep. And that smile lingered on his face, gentle and empty. Around 4 in the morning, he opened his eyes. Didn't sit up, didn't look around. Just opened them and stared at the ceiling. "Derek," I whispered. 47, he said softly. Ice flooded my veins. "What?" 47. He turned his head to look at me. In the darkness, I couldn't quite see his expression. 46, 45, 44. Stop it. 43, 42, 41. "Derek, this isn't funny." He sat up slowly, mechanically, like he was being pulled by strings. The smile never wavered. 40, 39, 38. I backed toward the door. "What's wrong with you?" 37, 36, 35. I scrambled out of the RV, stumbling in the darkness. Derek followed, still counting, still smiling. The fire had died to embers, offering no light. I ran toward site number 6, toward the older couple, hoping they could help, hoping I wasn't insane. Their RV was dark. I pounded on the door. "Hello? Please, I need help." No answer. I tried the handle. Locked. Derek was walking toward me across the campground, that measured pace still counting down. 31, 30, 29. I ran to site number 9, the family with kids. Same thing. Dark, locked, no response. Were they asleep? Ignoring me? Gone? 26, 25, 24. I had nowhere to go but the forest. I crashed into the trees, flashlight beam wild, branches tearing at my face and arms. Behind me, Derek followed. I could hear him counting, never speeding up, never slowing down, always the same distance behind me. 20, 19, 18. I ran until I couldn't breathe, until my legs gave out, until I collapsed in a small clearing. The flashlight fell from my hand, beam pointing at nothing. Derek entered the clearing. 15, 14, 13. "Please," I sobbed. "Please stop." He tilted his head, still smiling. 12, 11, 10. "What do you want?" 9, 8, 7. I saw it then, in the weak light, his eyes. They weren't Derek's eyes. They were older, colder, something ancient looking out through his face. 6, 5, 4. "Derek, I know you're in there. Fight it, please." 3, 2, 1. He stopped. Silence rushed in. We stared at each other across the clearing. Then Derek spoke in his normal voice. "Em? Derek? What happened? Where are we?" Confusion on his face. Real confusion. The smile was gone. "Why are we in the forest? Why are you crying?" I wanted to believe it. Wanted to think whatever had taken him had let go. But I saw the truth in the way he moved toward me. Careful, testing like he was learning to use his body. "Stay away from me," I said. "Em, it's me. I don't know what happened, but what's my favorite color?" He paused. "Blue." "It's green." "What's my middle name?" Another pause. "Marie." "It's Catherine. You're not Derek." The thing wearing Derek's face stopped pretending. The smile returned, wider than any human smile should be. "Smart," it said in a voice that was Derek's but wasn't. Smarter than he was. "What are you?" "Old. Older than these trees, older than this forest. We've been here since the beginning, counting, always counting. Time is just numbers, and we know them all." "Where's Derek?" "Here, buried inside. Maybe I'll let him surface sometimes. Maybe he'll remember pieces. Maybe you'll never be sure which one you're talking to." I backed away. It watched me with Derek's eyes. "You should go," it said. "Drive away. Forget this place. Forget him. Because if you stay, we'll count for you too. And when we reach 0, the smile widened impossibly. "Well, you'll find out." I ran. Through the forest, branches tearing at me, breath ragged. I didn't know direction, didn't care. Just ran until I burst out onto the campground. The RV was there, keys in my pocket. I could leave. Should leave. But Derek was in those woods, some part of him anyway. I got in the RV, started the engine. My hands shook on the wheel. All I had to do was drive. Leave him, leave this place, get help from town. I put it in gear. Then I heard it. From the forest, Derek's voice. His real voice, the one I'd known for 2 years. "Emily, help me. Please." I froze. "It's in my head. I can't." His voice cut off, replaced by that horrible whisper, 47. I looked at the road, looked at the forest, made my choice. I drove. The town was 20 miles away. I got there at dawn, went straight to the sheriff's office, told them everything, the counting, Derek acting strange, him being lost in the woods. I didn't mention possession, didn't mention ancient things. Just said my boyfriend was missing, possibly hurt, definitely not himself. They sent a search team. I led them back to the campground. Site number 14 was empty. Our RV, the one I'd driven out, was gone. In its place, nothing but dirt and pine needles, like we'd never been there at all. The other campsites were empty too. Site number 6, site number 9, site number 18. No RVs, no people, no signs anyone had been there recently. "Are you sure this is the right place?" the sheriff asked. I stared at the empty ground. Yes. They searched anyway, spent hours combing the forest. Found no trace of Derek, no clearing with bones, no circle of stones. Nothing. Eventually, they drove me to the hospital. Shock, they said, exposure, possible head injury. I let them think what they wanted. I spent 3 days there. Police came, asked questions I couldn't answer. Derek's parents called, frantic. I had nothing to tell them except he was gone, and I didn't know where. But I knew. Some part of me knew he was still in that forest, trapped inside his own body, counting down eternally. That was 6 weeks ago. I'm back in Salt Lake City now, got a new apartment, new locks, new everything. I don't go near forests, don't even like trees anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I hear it. Faint, like it's coming from very far away. 47, 46, 45. It's in my head, I tell myself. Trauma, PTSD, my brain making patterns from nothing. But then I check my phone. The GPS glitches. Sometimes it shows me in places I've never been. Once it showed me back at Fish Lake, right where our campsite had been. And yesterday, I looked in the mirror and saw something in my eyes. Just for a second. Something old and cold and counting. I'm writing this down because I need someone to know. In case I disappear. In case I start acting strange, smiling too much, speaking in numbers. I can feel it sometimes like a weight behind my thoughts, patient, waiting. 44, 43, 42. I don't know what happens when it reaches 0, but I'm counting down to find out. Story 3. My name is Ava Harris. I need to write this down while I still remember it clearly. While the details haven't blurred into something I can convince myself was just a bad dream. I'm writing this from a motel room in Lafayette, Louisiana, 3 days after I left the Atchafalaya Basin. My RV is still parked there. I'm not going back for it. I'm a freelance graphic designer, 34 years old, and I'd been doing the digital nomad thing for about 8 months when this happened. Living in an RV, working remotely, moving from campground to campground. It was supposed to be about freedom and finding myself after my divorce. All that predictable shit people do when their lives fall apart. The Atchafalaya Basin RV park wasn't on my original route. I'd been heading toward Texas but saw the turnoff and decided to check it out. The photos online made it look peaceful. Spaces carved out of the swamp, boardwalks over the water, Spanish moss hanging from everything. I thought I'd stay a few days, get some work done, maybe take some photos for my Instagram that I never actually posted to anymore. I pulled in around 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in October. The woman at the office was pleasant enough, mid-50s, and didn't ask questions when I paid cash for a week. She gave me a site number and a photocopied map with amenities marked in faded highlighter. There were maybe a dozen other RVs spread throughout the park. It was the off-season, she explained. Not many people this time of year. My spot was decent. Level ground, electrical hookup, picnic table. The swamp pressed in on 3 sides, but there was enough cleared space that I didn't feel claustrophobic. I spent the rest of the afternoon getting set up, connecting to the Wi-Fi, checking work emails. Normal things. Everything was normal. That first evening, I walked around the park. The boardwalks were solid, and there were a few other campers out. A retired couple grilling on a portable barbecue, a family with 2 kids throwing a frisbee. I nodded to people but didn't stop to chat. I wasn't there to make friends. The park backed up to what the map called preservation wetlands, basically undeveloped swamp that went on for miles. At the far end of the property, past the last RV site, there was a trail marked Nature Walk, 15 miles loop. I didn't take it that evening. It was getting dark, and I'm not stupid, but I filed it away for the next day. That night I slept fine, worked the next morning, took a long lunch, walked that nature trail in the afternoon. It was exactly what you'd expect. Cypress trees, muddy water, birds I couldn't identify. Nothing remarkable. The trail was well maintained with small numbered posts that probably corresponded to some guidebook I didn't have. I passed a couple of hikers going the opposite direction. We exchanged the obligatory beautiful day comments. It was at marker 7 where the trail forked. The main loop continued to the right, clearly marked. To the left, there was an older path, less maintained, with no marker. Just a gap in the vegetation that looked like people had walked through it enough times to keep it clear. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes, debating. The smart choice was to stay on the marked trail. But I'd been making smart choices my whole life, and they'd led to a failed marriage and a job I didn't care about anymore. So I went left. The path was narrower and darker, with the canopy closing in overhead. It wasn't threatening, just less traveled. I walked for maybe 20 minutes, checking my phone occasionally to make sure I had a signal to find my way back. The trail curved and twisted, and I lost track of direction pretty quickly. Then I saw the church. It appeared almost suddenly, the trees opening up into a small clearing that shouldn't have been there based on how the land had been looking. The building was old, probably from the 1800s if I had to guess. Wood construction, white paint peeling off in long strips, a small steeple with a cross that had tilted at an angle. The windows were mostly intact but dark, and the front door hung open about 6 inches. There was no sign of recent human activity. No path leading to it other than the one I'd come from. No cleared space for parking. No indication it was maintained or visited. Just this structure in the middle of the swamp, slowly being reclaimed. I should mention that I'm not particularly superstitious. I don't believe in ghosts or demons or any of that. My ex-husband used to drag me to haunted house attractions every Halloween, and I'd walk through them bored, pointing out the mechanisms of the scares. So standing in front of this abandoned church didn't fill me with supernatural dread. I was just curious. The door had swollen in its frame from humidity, but I managed to pull it open enough to slip inside. The interior was one large room, maybe 30 feet by 40 feet. Pews on either side of a center aisle, though many had rotted or collapsed. A raised platform at the far end where a pulpit would have been, though the pulpit itself was gone. The walls were water-stained and covered in mold, and there were holes in the ceiling letting in shafts of afternoon light. What struck me immediately was how still it was inside. Outside I could hear birds, insects, the general ambient noise of a swamp. Inside the church there was nothing. Complete silence, like the building was sealed even though it clearly wasn't. I walked down the center aisle, my footsteps echoing wrong, too flat, too dead. I was looking at the architecture, the craftsmanship of the woodwork, trying to figure out when it had been built and why someone would build a church this far into the swamp. That's when I noticed the shadows. The light coming through the windows and holes in the ceiling created obvious shadow patterns on the floor and walls. But as I moved through the space, I realized the shadows weren't moving with me. When I walked past a window, my shadow should have appeared on the opposite wall. It didn't. Or rather, it did. But it lagged. By a second. Maybe less. Just enough to be noticeable if you were paying attention. I stopped walking and stood completely still. The shadow cast by my body onto the floor in front of me didn't stop. It kept moving for another second, completing whatever motion I'd been in the middle of. Then it froze. I raised my right arm. My shadow raised its right arm. But a second later, I told myself it was some trick of the light, the way the sun was filtering through multiple openings, creating a delay effect I didn't understand. But I'm not an idiot. I know how shadows work. They don't have lag. I left the church quickly, not running but walking fast, and pulled the door back to where it had been. The trip back to the main trail took half as long as the walk out had, probably because I was moving faster. By the time I reached the nature walk loop, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Eyes playing tricks, fatigue, too much screen time affecting my perception. That evening I didn't mention the church to anyone. I made dinner in my RV, worked on a client project, watched some downloaded movies on my laptop. Normal evening. I went to bed around 11. I woke up at 3:06 a.m. I know the exact time because I'd left my phone charging on the counter next to the bed, and when I opened my eyes, that's what the screen said. 3:06 a.m. Someone was knocking on my RV door, not pounding, just a steady, polite knock, the kind a neighbor might use to borrow something. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more knocks. I lay there in the dark, trying to decide what to do. The RV park had security lighting, but my spot was far enough from the nearest light that the interior was pitch black. I couldn't see anything through the windows. The knocking came again. Same pattern. 3. Pause. 3. I got up and grabbed my phone. Turning on the flashlight, I moved to the front of the RV where the door was. Through the small window in the door, I could see someone standing there. A woman, I thought, though the angle and darkness made it hard to tell. "Who is it?" I called through the door. No answer, but another round of knocking. 3. Pause. 3. "The office is closed," I said. "Come back in the morning." The knocking stopped. I waited, holding my breath, trying to hear any sound of movement outside. Nothing. After 5 minutes, I convinced myself whoever it was had left. I went back to bed but didn't sleep. Just lay there staring at the ceiling of the RV until my alarm went off at 7. The next morning, I asked the woman in the office if there had been any issues during the night. She said no. Everything had been quiet. I described the knocking and she frowned, said she'd check with the security person who did occasional overnight rounds, but he usually only worked weekends. I spent the day working, trying to focus on a logo redesign that was due Friday. Around 2 p.m., I took a break and walked around the park. The retired couple I'd seen my first day were packing up their RV, preparing to leave. I waved and the woman walked over. "Leaving early?" I asked. She glanced back at her husband, who was securing something on the RV's roof. "We just decided it was time to move on. Lots of other places to see." "Everything okay here?" "Oh, sure." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's a nice park. Just ready for a change of scenery." She walked back to her RV before I could ask anything else. They pulled out an hour later. That afternoon, I went back to the church. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that there was nothing strange about it, that I just needed to prove to myself the shadow thing had been an illusion. But honestly, I don't know why I went back. Some part of me was drawn to it. The walk took less time now that I knew where I was going. The church looked the same, abandoned, slowly rotting, completely isolated. The door was still open 6 inches, exactly where I'd left it. I went inside. The shadows were worse. Not just lagging now, but moving independently. I stood in the center of the room, and my shadow on the floor in front of me shifted slightly to the right even though I hadn't moved. I took 3 steps forward, and my shadow took 4. I should have left right then. Instead, I walked up to the platform where the pulpit had been. There was a door in the back wall I hadn't noticed the day before, slightly ajar. I pushed it open. It was a small room, maybe 10 by 10 feet. Probably had been used for storage or as a vestry. There was nothing inside except dust and water damage and, On the far wall, something scratched into the wood. Not carved carefully, but gouged, like someone had used a rock or piece of metal to dig the letters in. It said, "Don't look at the shadows." Below that, in different handwriting, also scratched, "They see you seeing them." And below that, a third set of scratches, "It knows my name." I stood there reading and rereading those words, my phone's flashlight creating its own delayed shadow on the wall beside me. The rational part of my brain said this was probably teenagers, urban explorers, people who'd found the church and wanted to leave creepy messages. The other part of my brain, the one that had noticed my shadow moving wrong, said something different. I heard a sound from the main room of the church. Not loud, just a soft scraping, like something being dragged across the floor. I stepped back into the doorway, shining my light into the larger space. The pews cast long shadows from my light source, and every single one of those shadows was moving. Not dramatically, just small shifts and adjustments, like they were settling into new positions. My own shadow on the floor stretched out in front of me, and as I watched, it raised one arm, even though both my arms were at my sides. I left. Actually left this time, not looking back, trying not to run but definitely walking faster than I'd walked in. The whole way back to the main trail I had the feeling that if I turned around, I'd see my own shadow following me, independent of my body. I didn't turn around. Back at my RV, I tried to work but couldn't focus. I kept thinking about those scratched messages, particularly the last one. "It knows my name." Who had written that? When? Were they still alive? At 3:06 a.m. the knocking started again. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. This time I didn't get up. I lay in bed, listening to the pattern repeat. After the third set of knocks, I heard my name. Ava. Not loud, not threatening, just my name, spoken in a voice that sounded like it was coming from right outside my door. A woman's voice. "Ava, I found it." 3 more knocks. "Ava, you have to see." I pulled the blanket over my head like a child, which is embarrassing to admit, but that's what I did. I lay there shaking until the knocking stopped and the voice went away. When my alarm went off at 7, I was still awake, having not slept at all. The office woman, her name was Denise, I learned, looked concerned when I came in that morning. I must have looked pretty rough. I told her about the knocking again, the voice calling my name. She frowned and said she'd have someone check the cameras. But the park only had one camera covering the entrance, not individual sites. "Has anyone else complained about nighttime disturbances?" I asked. "Not recently," she said. But something in her tone made me think she was lying, or at least not telling me everything. "What about that church?" I asked. "The old one out past the nature trail?" Her expression changed. Not fear exactly, but something close to it. "I don't know what you mean." "The abandoned church, maybe a mile off the main trail to the left at marker 7. "There's no church out there," Denise said firmly. "Nature trail's just a loop. You must be thinking of somewhere else. I was inside it yesterday and the day before." She stared at me for a long moment. "I've worked here 11 years. There's no church in those wetlands. You probably found some old hunting camp or something." I pulled out my phone to show her photos, then realized I hadn't taken any. The whole time I'd been in the church, it hadn't occurred to me to document it. "Maybe you should consider moving to a different site," Denise said. "Closer to the office. Sometimes being too isolated can play tricks on your mind." I didn't argue. I took the map she offered with a site circled in red marker and went back to my RV to pack up and move. But when I got there, all my shadow looked wrong. I don't mean my actual shadow. I mean every shadow cast by every object in and around my RV. The shadow of my picnic table extended too far to the right based on where the sun was. The shadow inside my RV, visible through the windows, seemed too dark, too solid. And my own shadow, when I stood in the sunlight, was doing that lagging thing again. I packed up faster than I'd ever packed anything in my life, not bothering to organize, just throwing things into cabinets and closets. I hitched my RV to my truck in record time and drove it to the new site Denise had suggested. The new spot was closer to the office and had neighbors on both sides. A family with kids on the left, a single guy with a massive truck on the right. More exposed, less private. But that's what I wanted right then. I spent the afternoon reorganizing everything I'd thrown around during the quick pack-up. Around 5, the single guy from the next site over came by. His name was Marcus, late 20s, friendly in that way guys are when they're trying to figure out if you're single and interested. "Saw you move sites," he said. "Everything okay?" "Just wanted to be closer to facilities," I lied. "Cool, cool." He gestured at his elaborate camping setup, awning extended, multiple chairs, a professional-looking grill. "I've been here about 2 weeks, pretty chill place, you doing the whole nomad thing?" "Something like that. I did that for a while last year. It's great until you need to find a dentist or deal with mail." He laughed. "Hey, some of us are doing a campfire tonight if you want to join. Nothing crazy, just hanging out." I almost said no, but the thought of spending another evening alone in my RV waiting for 3:06 a.m. made me change my mind. "Sure, what time?" "Around 7, Site 12, back near the bathhouse." The campfire gathering was exactly what Marcus had promised, nothing crazy. 6 or 7 people ranging from college-age to retired sitting around a fire pit sharing drinks and stories. I nursed a beer and mostly listened. It was normal, aggressively normal, and that was exactly what I needed. Around 9, a woman named Kelly started talking about weird experiences she'd had while camping. Ghost stories, basically. Noises in the night, strange lights, that kind of thing. Everyone laughed and shared their own minor spooky moments. "What about you, Ava?" Marcus asked. "Any weird camping experiences?" I thought about the church, the shadows, the knocking at 3:06 a.m. "Not really," I said. Kelly, who'd had more drinks than anyone else, leaned forward. "Come on, everyone's got something. What about this place? You been out on any of the trails?" "Just the nature walk." "Did you go all the way around? Some people say if you go off trail, there's weird stuff out there." "Like what?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "I don't know, just rumors. Someone told me there used to be this religious group back in the 1800s, lived out in the swamp, started getting weird, doing crazy rituals, stuff like that. Eventually, everyone died or disappeared." "That's bullshit," Marcus said, laughing. "You're making that up." "I'm not. Someone told me about it. Said there's still buildings out there, and if you find them, you shouldn't go inside." "Why not?" someone else asked. Kelly shrugged. "I don't know. Just bad vibes or whatever. Ghosts." She laughed. "I'm probably making it scarier than it is. Point is, stick to the marked trails." The conversation moved on, but I kept thinking about what Kelly had said. A religious group in the 1800s. Buildings still out there. It matched what I'd found, but I hadn't told anyone about the church. So either Kelly knew about it from some other source, or it was a common enough local legend that multiple people knew pieces of it. I left the campfire around 10:30, thanked Marcus for the invitation, and walked back to my RV. The family next door was already asleep, their RV dark and quiet. I brushed my teeth, changed into sleep clothes, and got into bed. At 3:06 a.m., the knocking started. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. But this time it wasn't at my door. It was at my bedroom window, the one right next to where my head was on the pillow. I didn't move. I lay there, frozen, listening to the knocking continue, then the voice. "Ava, come see." The voice was coming from right outside the window, maybe 6 inches from my ear through the RV's thin wall. "Ava, the shadows know." 3 more knocks directly on the window. "Come see what they showed me." I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it at the window. The curtain was closed, but through it I could see a silhouette. Someone standing right outside, close enough that their breath would have fogged the glass if it were cold enough. The silhouette didn't move, just stood there. I fumbled with my phone, trying to dial 911, but my hands were shaking too much. Before I could get it to work, the knocking stopped. The silhouette outside the window moved away. I heard footsteps on gravel, fading into the distance. I spent the rest of the night sitting on my couch with all the lights on, a kitchen knife on the cushion next to me. When morning came, I went outside and checked the ground beneath my bedroom window. There were footprints in the mud, small, bare feet. A woman's feet or maybe a teenager's. The family next door was packing up. I caught the mother loading bags into their truck and asked if they'd heard anything during the night. "We're leaving," she said, not looking at me. "Did something happen?" She glanced at her husband, who was helping their kids into the truck. "We just need to go." "Was it the woman knocking on RVs at night because she—" "I don't know what you're talking about," the mother said, cutting me off. "We're just leaving. You should too." They pulled out 20 minutes later. I went to the office to talk to Denise. She wasn't there. Instead, there was a younger guy I hadn't seen before, maybe in his 20s, reading something on his phone behind the counter. "Is Denise around?" I asked. "She called in sick. Can I help you?" "There was someone outside my RV last night, knocking on the windows. I need to file a report or something." He set down his phone. "Did you see who it was?" "Just a silhouette. A woman, I think. She called my name." His expression changed, becoming more guarded. "You're in sight." 37. I just moved from site 12. "Okay. I'll make a note. We can have security do extra patrols." "Has anyone else reported this?" "Reported what?" "A woman knocking on RVs at 3:06 in the morning." He stared at me. "That's really specific. It happened at exactly 3:06 a.m. last night, and the night before, at my old site." "Look, I'll make a note, okay? If you're really concerned, you might want to contact local police. We don't have full-time security here." I left the office feeling like I'd gotten nowhere. Back at my site, Marcus was outside doing something with his RV's water hookup. He waved me over. "Hey, you okay? You look stressed." I considered lying but decided I was past that point. "Did you hear anything weird last night? Around 3 a.m.? "I sleep like the dead," he said. "Why?" "Someone was outside my RV knocking on the windows." His expression shifted from friendly to concerned. "Seriously, did you call the cops?" "Office guy said to call them if it happens again. Did you hear anything at the campfire last night? About people having experiences like that here?" "No, well, Kelly was doing her ghost story thing, but that was just bullshit." He paused. "You really think someone was outside your RV?" "I saw them, through the window." "That's fucked up. Want me to check around tonight?" "I can stay up, keep an eye out." Part of me wanted to say yes, but another part, the part that had been inside the church and seen the shadows move, didn't want Marcus anywhere near this. "No, it's fine. I'm probably going to leave anyway." "Probably smart," he said. "Sorry this happened. This is usually a pretty chill park." I spent the rest of the day working, or trying to. I couldn't focus. Every shadow in my RV looked wrong. When I moved, they lagged. When I stood still, they shifted. Around 2 p.m., I went outside to check, and my shadow on the ground was facing the wrong direction entirely, away from the sun instead of toward it. I got in my truck and drove. Didn't know where I was going, just needed to move. I ended up in a small town about 15 miles from the RV park, grabbed lunch at a diner, and spent 2 hours in a coffee shop trying to convince myself I was overreacting. When I got back to the park around 6 p.m., Marcus's RV was gone. His entire elaborate setup, awning, chairs, grill, everything was gone. The site was empty except for some tire tracks in the gravel. I knocked on the RV to my left, where the family had been. Also empty. In fact, looking around the park, I realized there were only 3 RVs left besides mine. The place had emptied out. I went to the office. The young guy from that morning was gone. Denise was back, sitting behind the counter, staring at nothing. "Everyone's leaving," I said. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You should leave too." "What's happening here?" "I don't know what you mean." "The church," I said. "The one you said doesn't exist." "What is it?" Denise's hands were shaking. I could see them trembling on the counter. "There's no church." "Bullshit. You know about it. What happened there?" "Nothing happened," she said, but her voice broke. Please just leave tonight. Don't wait until morning. Tell me what's happening. She started crying. Not loud, just tears running down her face. I can't. I'm not supposed to talk about it. They said if I tell anyone else, it'll get worse. Who said that? She shook her head. Just go, please. Before 3:06. I left the office and went back to my RV. I should have started packing immediately. Should have hitched up and driven away right then. But some stubborn part of me, the part that had walked into the church in the first place, wanted answers. I waited until dark, then grabbed a flashlight and walked to the nature trail. The path to the church was easier to find now. I'd walked it enough times that my feet knew where to go even in the darkness. The woods around me were completely silent. No birds, no insects, no ambient noise. Just the sound of my footsteps and my breathing. The church appeared in the clearing, and even from a distance I could see light inside it. Not electric light. It flickered like candles or lanterns. I should have turned around. I know that. But I didn't. The door was open, pulled all the way back this time. Inside, the main room was lit by dozens of candles placed along the walls and on the remaining intact pews. And standing at the far end, on the platform where the pulpit had been, was a woman. She looked like she was in her 30s, dark hair, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. She was looking up at something on the ceiling, her back to me. "Hello?" I said. She didn't turn around. "Ava, you came. Do I know you?" "You found the messages," she said. "On the wall. The scratched writing, that was you?" "Some of it." She finally turned to face me, and I saw that her eyes were wrong. Not obviously wrong. She didn't have black eyes or glowing eyes or any of that horror movie shit. But something about them was off. Like they didn't quite track together, or they were looking at things I couldn't see. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I'm waiting. I've been waiting for 3 days." She smiled, and it was the worst smile I've ever seen. Not threatening, just wrong, like someone who'd forgotten how smiling works and was trying to recreate it from memory. "Waiting for what?" She looked back up at the ceiling. "For the shadows to finish. They're almost done. Can you see?" I looked up. The ceiling was covered in shadows, not cast by anything, just shadows existing independently, moving and shifting and intertwining like they were alive. And they were forming patterns, I realized. Or maybe letters, like they were writing something. "What happened to you?" I asked the woman. "I found this place 6 days ago. I came inside. The shadows moved wrong, and I thought it was interesting, so I stayed to watch." She laughed, a hollow sound. "They watched back, they saw me seeing them, and now they know everything." "What do you mean?" "They learned my name, my memories, everything I am, and then they started making their own version. It's almost ready." She turned back to me, that wrong smile still on her face. "Yours is taking shape too. I can see it moving up there. See?" She pointed at the ceiling. I looked up again, and among the writhing shadows I saw something that might have been the outline of a person. My height, my build. And it was moving, learning, copying. "You need to leave," I said. "I can't. They won't let me. I tried yesterday, but I only got as far as the RV park before they pulled me back. I've been walking in circles. This is the only place that feels real anymore." "That was you knocking on my RV. Was it?" She tilted her head. "I don't remember. Time's funny now. Sometimes it's 3:06 for hours. Sometimes the whole night passes in a minute." I backed toward the door. "Come with me. We'll leave together." "You don't understand. I'm not leaving. The real me already did." She looked down at her hands, turning them over, examining them. "This is what they made. The copy, the me that stays here. The real me left 3 days ago, drove away in her RV, went back to her regular life. But I'm still here, I'll always be here." I ran. Out of the church, into the darkness, down the trail. I didn't use my flashlight. I just ran, branches hitting my face, roots trying to trip me. Behind me I heard the woman laughing, or maybe crying, it was hard to tell. I made it back to the nature trail loop and kept running until I reached the parking area. My RV was visible in the distance and I sprinted toward it. Inside, I locked every door and window, closed every curtain. I grabbed my keys and phone, ready to hitch up and leave immediately. Then I looked at my phone. 3:06 a.m. I'd lost hours somehow. It had been maybe 9 p.m. when I left for the church. Now it was after 3 in the morning. The knocking started. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. But this time it wasn't on my door or window. It was coming from inside the RV, from the bedroom. I walked toward the sound, knowing I shouldn't, unable to stop myself. The bedroom door was closed. I'd left it open. I always left it open. 3 more knocks from inside. I opened the door. The bedroom was filled with shadows. Not darkness. Shadows. They covered the walls, the bed, the ceiling, moving and shifting and writing. And in the center of the room, standing next to my bed, was me. Not a reflection, not a trick of the light. Another me, solid and real, wearing the same clothes I was wearing, with the same haircut and the same posture. She smiled at me, that same wrong smile the woman in the church had. "They finished," she said in my voice. "You can go now. I'll stay." I slammed the door and ran out of the RV. Into my truck, keys in the ignition, engine starting. I didn't bother hitching the RV. I just drove, leaving it behind, leaving everything behind. I made it to Lafayette by sunrise. Got this motel room. Haven't slept since. Here's the thing I can't stop thinking about. What if the woman in the church was right? What if the real me already left days ago and I'm the copy that stayed behind? What if I'm the shadow that learned to be Ava Harris and now I just think I escaped? I keep checking mirrors, watching my reflection, trying to see if it moves the wrong way. So far, it matches me perfectly, but sometimes when I'm not paying attention, I catch it out of the corner of my eye and it seems to lag, just for a second, just like in the church. I've been thinking about going back, not to the park, I'm never going back there, but to my real life, my apartment in Denver that I gave up when I started this trip, my few remaining friends, my family. But what if I show up and they can tell I'm not really me? What if the real Ava Harris already went back, and I'm just the echo? The thing the shadows made? Or worse, what if I go back and find her there? The real me living my life and she sees me and knows what I am. I don't know what to do. I've written this all down because I needed to process it, needed to see if putting it into words would make it make sense. It hasn't. There's a clock on the nightstand. Digital, red numbers. As I've been writing this, I've watched it count up through the hours. It just hit 3:06 a.m. Someone's knocking on the motel room door. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to sit here and wait for it to stop. And then I'm going to get in my truck and drive somewhere else. Maybe the knocking will follow me, maybe it won't. Maybe it doesn't matter because I'm not really Ava Harris anymore anyway. But I'm writing this final part just in case. If you're reading this, if you find this document somehow, don't go looking for that church. Don't go to the Atchafalaya Basin RV Park. Don't take the nature trail, don't turn left at marker 7. Because if you do, if you go inside that church and the shadows see you seeing them, they'll learn everything you are. And then they'll make their own version. And you'll never be sure which one is real. The knocking stopped. I just checked the door's peephole. There's someone standing there, but I can't see their face, just their silhouette. It's my silhouette. My height, my build, the way I stand with my weight on my left leg. She's raising her hand to knock again. I'm not going to let her in. I'm going to sit here and wait until sunrise. And then I'm going to leave. I'll keep driving. I'll find somewhere the shadows don't reach. But I can see my own shadow on the wall right now cast by the lamp next to me. And it's knocking too. 3 times, pause, 3 times, matching the rhythm at the door. I think I understand now. I think I finally understand what the woman in the church meant. The shadows don't just copy you, they replace you. The real you leaves, goes back to your life, and the shadow stays in the places you've been knocking at 3:06 a.m. trying to remember what it was like to be real. I'm the shadow. I must be. Because the real Ava Harris wouldn't be scared of the knocking. She'd answer the door. Story 4. My name is Tyler Scott. In our dreams, we ran from something, together, and felt it gaining on us. I need to write this down while I still remember who I am, while I can still separate what happened from what we dreamed. I'm not sure how much longer I have before those lines disappear completely. It started 3 weeks ago. 4 of us drove our RVs out to Kisatchie Forest in Louisiana for a long weekend. Me, my college roommate Derek Chen, his girlfriend Amanda Walsh, and my friend since high school, Marcus Reed. We'd been planning it for months, just a chance to get away from our jobs in Houston, disconnect from everything and spend some time in the woods. The campsite was called Longleaf Vista, about 40 minutes down a winding forest road from the main highway. The woman at the ranger station, probably in her 60s with sun-weathered skin, gave us a map and marked our spot with a pencil. Site 7, she said, all the way at the back of the campground away from the other campers. You'll have plenty of privacy, she told us. Her name tag said Judith. Nobody else reserved back there this weekend. Perfect, Derek said. That's exactly what we want. Judith looked at him for a moment, then at the rest of us. Her expression was hard to read. How long you planning to stay? Just 3 nights, Amanda said. We have to be back in Houston by Tuesday. Judith nodded slowly. She pulled out 4 small cards from a drawer and handed them to us. They had the ranger station number on them. Cell service is spotty out there, she said. If you need anything, there's a payphone at the station. We're open until 9. I pocketed the card without really looking at it. We thanked her and drove our RVs out to the site, following the narrow dirt road that wound deeper into the forest. The trees pressed in on both sides, long leaf pines mostly, with thick undergrowth between them. The late afternoon sun came through in shafts, but the shadows under the canopy were already dark. Site 7 was exactly what we wanted. A clearing maybe 50 yards across with a fire ring in the center and enough space for all 4 RVs. No other campers in sight. No sounds except birds and the wind moving through the trees. We spent the next hour getting set up, leveling the RVs, running the hookups. My RV was an older Winnebago I'd bought used 2 years ago. Derek and Amanda had a newer model, one of those fancy ones with the slide-out sides. Marcus had a vintage Airstream he'd restored himself. By the time we finished, the sun was setting. We built a fire and sat around it with beers talking about nothing important. Work stories, old memories, plans for the next day, normal stuff. We should do a night hike tomorrow, Marcus suggested. He'd always been the outdoorsy one. There's supposed to be a good trail about a mile from here. At night? Amanda made a face. Why? Best time to see wildlife. Plus, it's cooler. I'm in, Derek said. Tyler, I shrugged. Sure, why not? We stayed up until maybe midnight, then headed to our respective RVs. I remember brushing my teeth, checking that the door was locked, force of habit even though we were in the middle of nowhere, and climbing into bed. The RV still smelled faintly of the previous owner's cigarette smoke, something I'd never quite gotten rid of. I fell asleep quickly. That's when the dream started. I was running through the forest. Not our campsite. Somewhere else. Somewhere with trees packed so close together I had to turn sideways to squeeze between them. It was dark, but not completely. There was light from somewhere, enough to see by, though I couldn't tell where it was coming from. My lungs burned. My legs ached. I'd been running for a long time, and I could hear it behind me. I didn't see it. Never saw it in any of the dreams, but I could hear it moving through the trees, breaking branches, pushing through the undergrowth. It was fast, faster than me, and it was getting closer. I ran harder, my heart hammering, sweat running down my face. The trees seemed to shift around me, changing position when I wasn't looking directly at them. I couldn't find a way out. Every direction looked the same. Then I heard the others. Derek was somewhere to my left, crashing through the brush. I could hear him breathing, harsh and panicked. Amanda was further away, calling out for Derek. And Marcus? I couldn't see him, but I could hear his footsteps, the snap of twigs under his feet. We were all running, all being hunted. The thing behind me made a sound, not quite a growl, not quite words. Something in between that made my skin crawl, and my brain refused to process it properly. I tried to scream, tried to call out to the others, but my throat wouldn't work. All I could do was run. Then I woke up. I was sitting upright in bed, my sheets soaked with sweat, my heart racing like I'd actually been running. The clock on my phone said 3:47 a.m. I sat there for a while, waiting for my breathing to slow down, telling myself it was just a dream, just a stupid dream. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it had been real. The next morning, I was the last one up. The others were already sitting around the fire ring when I came out, drinking coffee from camp mugs. Derek looked like hell, dark circles under his eyes, his face pale. "Rough night?" I asked. He glanced at Amanda, then at Marcus. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that made my stomach tighten. "Did you dream last night?" Amanda asked me. I sat down on one of the folding chairs. "Yeah." "Why?" "What about?" "I don't know. Running through the woods or something." "Why?" Marcus leaned forward. "What else? Was anyone else there?" I thought about it. "I think so. I heard people. Running like I was." "And there was something chasing you," Derek said. It wasn't a question. We stared at each other. "We all had the same dream," Amanda said quietly. "All four of us. We compared notes before you got up. Same forest, same running, same thing behind us." I wanted to laugh it off, to say it was a coincidence. People have similar dreams all the time, right? But looking at their faces, I couldn't make myself do it. "That's weird," I said. "It's more than weird," Marcus said. "I've never had a dream that vivid. It felt real, like I was actually there." Derek nodded. I could feel the branches hitting me, smell the pine needles, everything. We sat in silence for a while. The morning sun was warm, the birds were singing, everything looked perfectly normal. But something felt off now, like we'd crossed some invisible line and couldn't go back. "So what do we do?" I asked. "Nothing," Amanda said. "It's just a dream. It doesn't mean anything." But her voice didn't sound convincing. We spent the day hiking, trying to act normal. The trails around Kisachi were nice, well-maintained, lots of shade, not too difficult. We saw a few other people, exchanged nods and hellos, kept moving. Nobody mentioned the dreams. We pretended everything was fine. That night, we stayed up later, drinking more than we should have. I think we were all trying to avoid going to sleep, though nobody said it out loud. Finally, around 2 in the morning, we gave up and went to our RVs. I lay in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling. The RV creaked and settled around me. Outside, I could hear the wind moving through the trees, a sound that should have been peaceful but instead felt ominous. Eventually, despite my best efforts, I fell asleep. And I was running again. The same forest, the same darkness that wasn't quite darkness, the same desperate, panicked flight through trees that moved when I wasn't watching. But this time, it was worse. This time, the thing behind me was closer. I could hear its breathing, a wet, rattling sound that made my skin crawl, and I could hear the others more clearly now. Derek was screaming Amanda's name. Amanda was crying. Marcus was muttering something under his breath, over and over, though I couldn't make out the words. We were all exhausted. My legs felt like lead, my lungs burned, my heart felt like it would burst. But I couldn't stop running. If I stopped, it would catch me. I knew that with absolute certainty. The thing made that sound again, that not quite growl, not quite words. And this time I almost understood it. Almost heard what it was saying. That was worse than not knowing. I woke up at 3:47 a.m., again, exactly the same time. This time I got up and went outside. The fire had burned down to embers, giving off barely any light. The moon was behind clouds. It was dark. The kind of dark you don't get in cities where the blackness seems to have weight and substance. I heard a door open. Marcus came out of his Airstream, saw me, walked over. "You too?" he asked. I nodded. "Same time?" 3:47. He ran his hand through his hair. "This is fucked up, man." I wanted to disagree, but I couldn't. He was right. "Should we wake the others?" "They're already up," Derek said from behind us. I turned to see him and Amanda standing by their RV. Amanda had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Derek's hands were shaking. We gathered around the fire ring. Nobody bothered relighting it. We just sat there in the darkness. "It was worse this time," Amanda said, closer. I almost understood what it was saying, I said. Marcus looked at me. "You heard words?" "Almost. Like it was speaking a language I used to know but forgot." "I heard it too," Derek said. "Just on the edge of comprehension." We sat in silence. The forest around us was completely quiet now. No insects, no birds, no wind, just silence. "We should leave," Amanda said. "Pack up and go home. This place isn't right." Part of me agreed with her. The rational part that said this was crazy, that we should listen to our instincts and get out. But another part of me, a part I didn't want to examine too closely, was curious. Wanted to know what happened next. Wanted to understand what was hunting us in our dreams. "Let's sleep on it," Derek said. "Decide in the morning when we're thinking clearly." Amanda looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. We went back to our RVs. I didn't sleep again that night. I don't think any of us did. The next morning, we decided to stay. I can't fully explain why. In retrospect, it was obviously the wrong choice. But at the time, it felt inevitable. Like we'd already been caught and were just going through the motions of trying to escape. We spent the day around the campsite, not talking much. Derek and Amanda mostly stayed in their RV. Marcus worked on something under the hood of his truck. I tried to read a book but couldn't focus on the words. They kept sliding away from me, and I'd realize I'd been staring at the same page for 20 minutes without taking in a single sentence. Around 4 in the afternoon, I noticed something odd. My phone said it was 4:15, but my watch said 6:30. I checked Marcus's truck. The clock there said 6:32. I mentioned it to the others. "Mine says 4:15, Derek said, looking at his phone. "Mine says 6:30, Amanda said, checking her watch. We compared all our devices. The phones all said one time. The watches and clocks all said another. A difference of 2 hours and 15 minutes. "We must have lost time," Marcus said, "between when we last checked and now." "That's impossible," Amanda said. But it had happened. Somehow, somewhere, we'd lost over 2 hours without noticing. That evening, Marcus suggested we go to the ranger station, talk to Judith, ask if other people had reported strange experiences at this campsite. It seemed like a good idea, so we drove there in Marcus's truck. The drive took longer than I remembered. The winding road through the forest seemed to stretch on forever, the trees pressing in on both sides. Finally, we reached the station. It was closed. A sign on the door said they'd reopened at 8 a.m. "I thought that woman said they were open until 9, Derek said. I looked at the card Judith had given me. It said open 8 to 5 daily in small print at the bottom. "Maybe we misheard," I said. We stood there in the parking lot looking at the locked door. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the gravel. I had the strangest feeling that someone was watching us from the trees, but when I turned to look, there was nothing there. "Let's go back," Amanda said. "I don't like this place." On the drive back, none of us spoke. The road seemed different now, the turns coming in the wrong order, the landmarks not quite where they should be. At one point, I was sure we'd already passed the same tree twice, but that didn't make sense. When we finally reached the campsite, it was full dark. Our RVs sat in the clearing like sentinels, their windows dark and empty. That night, we didn't even pretend we weren't afraid. We built the fire up high and sat around it, none of us wanting to be the first to go to bed. But eventually, exhaustion won. Around 11, Amanda stood up. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "I need to sleep." Derek went with her. Marcus and I stayed up a little longer, but finally we couldn't put it off anymore. "See you in the dreams?" Marcus said as he headed to his Airstream. I wanted to laugh, but it came out wrong. I went to my RV, got ready for bed, and lay down. For a long time I stared at the ceiling, dreading what I knew was coming. But there's only so long you can fight sleep. I was running. But this time was different. This time I could see the others. Derek was maybe 20 yards to my left, stumbling over roots, his face twisted in terror. Amanda was further back, her breath coming in sobs. Marcus was ahead of me, moving faster than the rest of us, but even he was tiring. And the thing behind us was so close now. I could hear every detail of its movement, the scrape of something against bark, the crack of branches, the wet, heavy sound of its breathing. I still couldn't see it when I looked back, but I could feel it. Feel its presence like a weight on my back, like hands reaching for me. The forest had changed too. The trees were older now, massive trunks disappearing up into darkness. The ground was softer, more like mud than dirt. And there were things growing between the trees, strange pale fungus that glowed faintly in the darkness, giving off enough light to see by. Derek fell. I heard him go down, heard his cry of pain. Without thinking, I changed direction, started running toward him. So did Amanda. Marcus didn't notice at first, kept running, then realized we'd stopped and turned back. Derek was on the ground, clutching his ankle. "I can't," he gasped. "I can't keep running." The thing behind us made that sound again. Closer now. Much closer. And this time, I understood one word of it. Found. I grabbed Derek under the arms, tried to pull him up. Marcus grabbed his other side. Together we got him to his feet. He put weight on his injured ankle and nearly collapsed again. "Leave me," Derek said. "You have to leave me." "Shut up," Amanda said. She was crying, but her voice was firm. "We're not leaving you." We half carried, half dragged him forward. But it was too slow. The thing was right behind us now. I could smell it. A rotten, sweet smell like decaying flowers. Then everything went white. I woke up at 3:47 a.m. But this time something was wrong with my ankle. It hurt, a sharp, stabbing pain exactly where Derek had injured his ankle in the dream. I sat up, pulled back the covers, looked at it. There were bruises, dark purple bruises in the shape of fingers, like someone had grabbed my ankle hard enough to hurt. I got up, limped to the door, went outside. Marcus was already there, sitting by the dead fire. His shirt was torn, 3 long scratches across his back visible through the ripped fabric. "Check your ankle," I said. He pulled up his pant leg. Same bruises. Derek and Amanda came out next. Derek was limping, holding his ankle. Amanda had scratches on her arms. We compared injuries. They all matched. Bruises on our ankles, scratches on Marcus and Amanda, a sore spot on Derek's side where he'd hit a root going down. Injuries from the dream. "We need to leave," Amanda said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Right now. We pack up and we go." None of us argued. We scattered to our RVs, started breaking down the campsites. It was still dark, but we worked by flashlight and the light from our phones. I was throwing things into cabinets, not bothering to secure them properly, just wanting to get everything inside so we could go. I was disconnecting the water hookup when I heard Amanda scream. I ran toward their RV. Derek was standing outside, his flashlight aimed at something on the ground. Marcus was already there. It was a body, or what was left of one. An animal, maybe. It was hard to tell. It had been torn apart, scattered across the clearing. The smell was overpowering, that same rotten sweet smell from the dream. "What the hell is that?" Marcus asked. Derek's flashlight moved across the remains. I saw matted fur, bones, something that might have been a skull. Then the light caught something else. A collar. "That's a dog," Amanda said. She sounded like she might be sick. Someone's dog. We stood there staring at it. The clearing was completely silent except for our breathing. "We need to go," I said. "Now." We finished packing in a frenzy, none of us wanting to spend another second in that place. By the time we were done, the sky was starting to lighten in the east. I climbed into my RV, started the engine, and pulled out onto the dirt road. Behind me, I could see Marcus's Airstream, then Derek and Amanda's RV. We drove in a convoy, none of us wanting to be alone. The road seemed longer than ever. The trees pressed in on both sides, their branches reaching over the road like claws. My hands were tight on the steering wheel, my ankle throbbing every time I pressed the brake. We'd been driving for maybe 15 minutes when I noticed something odd. A tree by the side of the road, split by lightning and charred black. I remembered that tree. We'd passed it on the way in, but I'd already passed it twice this morning. I grabbed my radio. We'd all been using CB radios to stay in touch while driving. "Marcus, are we going in circles?" His voice crackled back. "I don't think so, but I've seen that same tree 3 times. "So have I." Derek's voice joined us. "The GPS is going crazy. It keeps resetting, losing the satellite signal." We kept driving. The sun was fully up now, but it didn't make me feel any better. If anything, the daylight made everything worse. In the dark, I could pretend I just couldn't see where I was going. In the light, I had to admit the truth. The road was looping. We were driving the same stretch of forest over and over, passing the same landmarks, getting nowhere. "Stop!" Amanda's voice came over the radio. "Everyone stop." We pulled over, got out, met in the middle of the road. "This isn't working," Amanda said. "The forest won't let us leave." "That's insane," Derek said, but his voice was weak, unconvincing. "Then explain what's happening," Amanda shot back. "Explain the dreams, the injuries, the dead dog, the road that loops. Explain any of it." None of us could. "So what do we do?" Marcus asked. I don't know who suggested it first or if we all thought of it at the same time, but somehow we decided. We'd go back to the campsite. We'd sleep. We'd face whatever was in the dreams, because the alternative was driving in circles until we ran out of gas, stranded in a forest that wouldn't let us leave. We drove back. The road didn't loop this time. It took us straight to the campsite, like it had been waiting for us to make the decision. Site 7 looked the same as when we'd left it. The fire ring, the cleared area, the trees pressing in all around. The scattered remains of the dog were still there. We didn't look at them too closely. We didn't bother unhooking the RVs or setting up properly. We just parked them, went inside, and waited for nightfall. I remember sitting in my RV that afternoon, watching the light change outside the windows. The sun moved across the sky. Shadows grew longer, and I felt a strange sense of calm. Like the last few days of fighting had exhausted me, and now I was ready to just accept whatever happened. Around 5 p.m., I noticed Marcus was missing. I got out of my RV, walked over to his Airstream. The door was open. I called his name. No answer. Derek and Amanda came out when they heard me calling. "Where is he?" Amanda asked. "I don't know. He was here an hour ago." We searched the campsite. His truck was still there. His wallet and phone were inside the Airstream. But Marcus was gone. "Maybe he went for a walk," Derek suggested. "Without his phone? In this place?" We called for him. Walked the perimeter of the campsite. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished. "We should look in the forest," I said. "Are you crazy?" Amanda shook her head. "We're not going in there. He could be hurt. Or he could be—" She stopped, not wanting to finish the thought. We stood there arguing as the sun set. Finally, we compromised. We'd wait until morning. If Marcus wasn't back by then, we'd decide what to do. That night, we stayed together in Derek and Amanda's RV. It was bigger, and none of us wanted to be alone. We played cards, tried to watch a movie on Derek's laptop, did anything to avoid thinking about what was coming. Around 11, Amanda asked the question we'd all been avoiding. "What if Marcus is in the dream with us? What if we find him there? Then we bring him back," Derek said. "What if we can't?" "We'll figure it out." But his voice didn't sound certain. Midnight came, then 1 a.m., then 2. We couldn't put it off forever. "I'm going to bed," I said. "I can't stay awake any longer." "Should we all sleep at the same time?" Amanda asked. "Or should someone stay awake to watch?" "Watch for what?" Derek asked. She didn't have an answer. In the end, we all went to bed. Derek and Amanda in their bedroom, me on the fold-out couch. It was uncomfortable, but I didn't care. I closed my eyes and waited for sleep. I was running. But this time I knew what to do. I could feel the others nearby. Derek on my left, Amanda behind me, and Marcus. Marcus was ahead, but he wasn't running. He was standing still, his back to me, watching something I couldn't see. "Marcus," I called out. He turned. Even in the strange half-light of the dream forest, I could see something was wrong. His face was slack, expressionless. His eyes were empty. "Marcus, we have to run." He smiled. It was wrong, that smile. Too wide, too many teeth. "Why would I run?" His voice sounded different. Hollow. "I'm home." The thing behind us made it sound, that not quite growl, not quite words. And this time Marcus answered it. He made the same sound, like he was speaking the same language. Derek ran past me, heading for Marcus. "Snap out of it, man. We have to go." Marcus reached out as Derek got close. His hand moved faster than should have been possible, grabbed Derek by the throat, lifted him off the ground. "No!" Amanda screamed. She was running toward them, but I grabbed her, held her back. Marcus was still smiling, that wrong smile. Derek was choking, his feet kicking uselessly in the air. "Stop!" I shouted. "Marcus, stop!" He looked at me. For just a moment I saw something in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Pain. Then it was gone, replaced by that same empty blankness. He dropped Derek, who fell to the ground gasping. Then Marcus turned and walked into the forest, toward where the thing was waiting. The shadows swallowed him, and he was gone. I woke up at 3:47 a.m. I was on the couch in Derek and Amanda's RV. My throat hurt. I reached up, felt tender spots on my neck like someone had grabbed me there. Derek's bedroom door opened. He came out, one hand at his throat. We looked at each other. "It was me," he said. "I was the one Marcus grabbed. But I have the bruises." We compared throats. We both had marks in slightly different places. Like the dream hadn't decided which of us had really been grabbed, so it marked us both. Amanda came out next. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. "He's not coming back," she said. "Marcus, he's not coming back." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. I'd seen his eyes in the dream, seen him walk into the shadows. Whatever had come back wouldn't be Marcus. Not really. We sat in silence as the sun came up. None of us suggested looking for him. We all knew there was no point. Around 7, Derek spoke up. "We have to finish this. Tonight. We go into the dream, and we face whatever it is." "How?" I asked. "It's too fast, too strong. I don't know. But we can't keep running. Sooner or later, it'll catch us. Maybe it already has." Amanda was crying quietly. "What if we're already dead? What if we died the first night and this is all just an afterlife or something?" The thought had occurred to me. I'd been trying not to think about it. "We're not dead," Derek said, but he didn't sound sure. "We spent the day preparing. We didn't know what we were preparing for exactly, but it felt important to do something." Derek found tools in his RV. A hammer, a screwdriver, a utility knife, like they'd help against whatever was in the dreams. Amanda wrote a letter to her parents, sealed it in an envelope. I tried to call my sister, but my phone showed no signal. It hadn't had signal for days. That evening, we saw Marcus. He walked into the clearing from the forest, moving slowly, that same empty expression on his face. We watched him from Derek's RV, not going outside. "Should we talk to him?" Amanda whispered. "That's not Marcus," I said. As if he'd heard me, Marcus stopped walking. He stood in the middle of the clearing, looking at our RVs. Then he smiled, that too wide smile. I know you're in there, he called out. His voice sounded wrong, like something was speaking through him. Why are you hiding? None of us answered. You can't run forever. It's waiting for you. It's been waiting a long time. What is it? Derek shouted. What's out there? Marcus tilted his head, like he was listening to something we couldn't hear. It doesn't have a name. Not one you could understand. It hunts in dreams because that's where you're real. That's where you're honest. During the day, you lie to yourselves. But in dreams, you can't hide. Why us? Amanda asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, you were convenient. You came to its place, slept in its territory. It was hungry. What does it want? To feed, to hunt. That's all it's ever wanted. He started walking toward Derek's RV. We backed away from the window. Should we let him in? Amanda asked. No, I said. That's not Marcus anymore. Marcus reached the RV, put his hand on the door. We heard him testing the lock. You have to sleep eventually, he said. And when you do, you'll run again. You'll always run, that's what it wants. The fear, the exhaustion, the desperation, that's what feeds it. Fuck you! Derek shouted. Get away from here! Marcus laughed. It was a horrible sound, wet and gurgling. I'll be waiting, he said. Then he turned and walked back into the forest. We sat in silence for a long time. We can't win, Amanda said finally. Can we? I wanted to say yes, wanted to give her hope, but I couldn't lie. I don't know, I said. That night we tried to stay awake. We drank coffee, slapped each other when we started to doze off, did everything we could to fight sleep. But the human body has limits. Around 3 a.m, Amanda fell asleep in her chair. Derek tried to wake her, but she wouldn't respond. Should we keep trying? He asked. I shook my head. It doesn't matter. We're going to end up in the dream anyway. Derek looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded, lay down on the couch and closed his eyes. I was the last one awake. I sat there in the dark RV listening to their breathing, watching the shadows move outside the windows. Finally, I couldn't fight it anymore. I closed my eyes. I was running, but this time felt different. This time I wasn't afraid, I was angry. Angry at the thing hunting us, angry at myself for coming here, angry at everything. Derek and Amanda were beside me, running with me. Ahead, I could see Marcus, or what had been Marcus. He was standing in a clearing, waiting. This way, I shouted, changing direction. But Derek grabbed my arm. No, we face it. We don't run anymore. Amanda nodded. He's right. I'm tired of running. We slowed to a walk, then stopped. The 3 of us stood there, breathing hard, waiting for what came next. The thing emerged from the shadows. I still couldn't see it clearly. It was like my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing, sliding away from the image, replacing it with impressions and suggestions instead of actual sight. But I could see enough. It was big. Bigger than it should have been. It moved wrong, its limbs bending at angles that didn't make sense. And it was smiling. At least, I think it was smiling. The suggestion of teeth, too many of them, in a mouth that opened too wide. Marcus walked toward it. When he reached it, he turned and looked at us. For just a moment, his eyes were his own again. I'm sorry, he said. Then the thing touched him, and he was gone. Just gone, like he'd never existed. The thing turned its attention to us. Run, Derek said. Run. We ran, but I knew it was useless. We couldn't outrun it. We never could. It was just playing with us, enjoying the hunt. I felt something grab my ankle and I went down hard. The thing was on me, its weight crushing, its smell overwhelming. I tried to scream but couldn't breathe. Then everything went white again. I woke up at 3:47 a.m., but something was wrong. I opened my eyes and I was outside, standing in the clearing. Derek and Amanda were there too, all of us standing in the exact same positions we'd been running in the dream. And Marcus was there. Not the wrong version, the real Marcus. He was lying on the ground, curled up, shaking. Marcus, I ran to him, knelt beside him. "Marcus, are you okay?" He looked up at me. His eyes were his own, but they were terrified. "It let me go," he whispered. "It's done with me. It wants you now." "What do you mean?" "In the dream, when it touched me, I saw everything, what it is, what it wants, and it's not hunting us, not anymore." "Then what?" "We're not running away from it. We never were. We're running toward it, every night getting closer. And tonight we reached it." I looked around the clearing. The trees seemed closer than they should be, pressing in on us from all sides. The shadows between them were deeper, darker. "We need to leave," Amanda said. Her voice was high, panicked. "Right now." "It's too late," Marcus said. He was still on the ground, not trying to get up. "Don't you understand? We've been in the dream this whole time, since the first night. We never woke up." "That's not true," Derek said, but he didn't sound sure. Marcus laughed, a broken, hopeless sound. "Check your phones, check the date." I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked. When had that happened? The date displayed said it was still the first day we'd arrived, 3 days ago, according to my memory. But my phone said we'd only been here for 1 day. "We've been dreaming for 3 days straight," Marcus said, "looping through the same nightmare, and the thing in the forest has been feeding on us the whole time, drinking our fear like wine." I looked at Derek and Amanda. They'd checked their phones too, saw the same thing I did. "But we're awake now," Amanda said. "We're talking, we're thinking clearly. This isn't a dream." "Isn't it?" Marcus finally stood up. "Then explain how you got outside without remembering. Explain why you woke up standing instead of in bed. Explain any of this." We couldn't. From the forest came that sound again. That not quite growl, not quite words, closer than ever. "It's coming," Marcus said. "It's been coming this whole time. We've just been too scared to see it." The trees were definitely closer now. I could see them moving, their roots sliding through the dirt, pulling themselves forward inch by inch. "What do we do?" I asked. Marcus looked at me. For the first time since this started, he smiled. A real smile, sad and tired. "We wake up," he said. "For real this time." "How?" "We stop running. We turn around and face it. In the dream, we see it fully. And once we see it, really see it, we can wake up." "Are you sure?" Derek asked. "No, but what choice do we have?" The sound came again, louder, right behind us. I could smell that rotten sweet smell, could feel something's breath on the back of my neck. I turned around. I'm writing this from my apartment in Houston. I've been home for 2 days. My phone says I was only in Louisiana for 1 night, just like it showed in the dream. But my body says different. I'm exhausted, my ankle still has bruises, my throat is sore. Derek and Amanda came back too. We don't talk about what we saw when we turned around. Every time I try to remember it clearly, my mind slides away, replaces the memory with something more bearable. Marcus hasn't come back yet. Every night, I dream, but they're not the running dreams anymore. Now I dream I'm standing in that clearing, watching the trees slowly advance. And there's something in the shadows between them, something watching me with patient hunger. And every morning, I wake up at 3:47 a.m. I'm writing this down because I need someone to know what happened, in case I don't come back one of these times. In case one morning I wake up and I'm standing in that clearing again, and this time there's no way out. Derek called yesterday. He said the bruises on his throat are getting darker instead of fading. Amanda won't answer her phone. I keep telling myself it's over. We escaped. We woke up. But I'm not sure that's true. Last night I smelled that rotten sweet smell in my bedroom. And when I checked my phone this morning, the date was wrong. Just by 1 day. Like somewhere, somehow, I lost time again. The thing in the forest is patient. It's been waiting a long time. It can wait a little longer. And every night, when I close my eyes, I hear it calling. I'm so tired. I haven't really slept in days. I know I should stay awake, but my body is giving out. Soon, I won't be able to fight it anymore. Soon I'll close my eyes and I'll be running again. And this time I don't think I'll wake up at 3:47 a.m. This time I think I'll just keep running forever, in a dream that has no end, feeding the hunger of something that hunts in the spaces between waking and sleeping. I need to write down one more thing, the most important thing. When we turned around in the clearing, when we finally looked at what was hunting us, I saw its face. It was mine. It was all of our faces, somehow merged together, wrong and right at the same time. Like it had been feeding on us so long that it had become us or we had become it. Marcus understood first. That's why he hasn't come back. Because he realized the thing in the forest wasn't hunting us at all. We were hunting ourselves. And now, sitting here in my apartment with the morning sun coming through my windows, I can't shake the feeling that I'm still there. Still in that clearing in Kisachi Forest. Still running through the trees while something wears my face and chases close behind. I can't shake the feeling that I never left at all. The date on my phone is wrong again. Yesterday's date. We're looping again. I'm so tired. I need to sleep. Just for a little while. My name is Tyler Scott. In our dreams, we ran from something, together, and felt it gaining on us. But we were wrong about what was chasing us. We were running from ourselves all along.